And we bring in the aforementioned Jim Norton of Jim Norton Real Estate. He's one of the
Can
most
you
creative people you'll ever meet. He
can
founded.
you hear me okay?
Can we what?
Can you hear me okay? My AirPods just, I'm laughing because you had technical difficulties. My AirPods just died.
Holy cow, man! It's early here in the morning if you're listening to us live on the socials. If it's
It's
in the afternoon on ABC
it's a
News and
full
Talk,
moon.
you got to wonder. It's early in the morning. His phone's dead. His AirPods are dead. Um,
I've got, you don't want to see my desk. I have three sets here. I've tried all three, and all three are dead. Where's it? I
that
need a good old wired microphone.
I think it almost sounds like some sort of operator error. But I
Truly,
digress.
truly so, truly so.
So let's talk from a builder's standpoint. Permits to starts to completion. Um, Now you weren't as big as like a DR Horton or something like that, were you?
No, but I was with those companies. So when I
Okay.
started my career, I actually started at Richmond American Homes, which is a publicly traded. And then when I finished my career, I was at Equity Residential, which at that time was the largest apartment builder and owner in the United States. And then I went out on my own, and I was just a small fish, but it was mine, and I enjoyed it and had a lot of good time. There's something about building homes that is very, very exciting, and it's very risky. But in the case of what's going on with all this, we still have, just bottom line, simply put, no inventory is not out there. Builders in California, the regulatory process is still the issue to get things done. The time frame is so long that they actually go out looking a lot for people that have already developed lots so that they can buy a track map, which is the map of all the lots, so they can build. And then they don't carry it on their books because most of these guys, the big guys, are all publicly traded. Um, so it's a rough business, and it's also a the kind of business where you have to have the crystal ball. You've got to you're looking at something today that won't be delivered for at least 18 months at minimum.
Wow.
And so it's quite tough business from that standpoint. And then of course you add to it, these interest rates are not doing well for them. I know that a lot of them are doing buyback or buy downs and everything, or offering. Some of them own their own mortgage companies, so they can offer a different program. But it's real hard to build. It's real hard to build in certain areas, especially California. I mean, let's keep it to the neighborhood rather than anything. Southern California is short. I think we're constantly short 4,000 units every year in construction. And I think now we're even shorter than that in uh, demand. And so that's why when I saw something the other day where somebody wrote a very sensible argument, and he said that uh, it is a good time to buy, because if you think it's hard to find something right now, wait till the interest rates go down.
That's logical, and we've been forecasting that interest rates are going to drop, and not just the Fed funds rate. We're talking about the interest rates will be dropping um, on mortgages, and which is more important to us. We talk about the discount rate, and that's an easy one. But when you talk about mortgages, that's what's more important to our world. Although we still talk about the same thing, and most people don't want to hear it. That if you look at the Home Select, it's still the effective rate still under 3% in most instances. Not every instance, but I haven't seen one that's above 3% on the effective APR. So I'm just throwing that out there to people that if you haven't looked at it, you might really want to take a look and see. And if you want to know what we think about interest rates, rsrlinks.com/rate forecast. I found it, Josh. rsrlinks.com/rate forecast will give you that correlation that goes for everything. It goes from the discount rate to the 10-year treasury and how that then affects the 30-year the 30-year mortgage. And maybe you don't want a 30-year mortgage. Maybe that's the most expensive mortgage out there. So
Well,
we'll
you're
talk about all that and more. We're going to come back and chat with Jim Norton more about custom built homes. Maybe we'll talk about that and more, and the year-end conclusion, all that and more. Let's chat more with our builder friend, Jim Norton. He does all kinds of real estate, but in his prior existence, he
prior
was in
life,
the what's that?
my prior life.
Prior life, he was in the he was a builder, both big time and more independent.
Mhm.
So he knows all these. So Jim, give me the progression. I mean, when you're doing it as an independent, you know that if you get a permit, you're going to finish. I would assume because it's
Correct.
your money.
Right.
When you're into the big projects that these the big guys do, what's the catalyst for somebody getting a permit but not starting or finishing that project?
The catalyst for getting a permit is they're banking on they're banking it on the future. So they have 100 lot subdivision. They try to get as many permits as they can, just in case there is some regulatory issue that's going to pop up. Again, we're talking about not in my backyard type of things that stop developments and everything. Take a city like Carlsbad. I think they pretty much just about sue every builder that tries to pull a permit so that they can try to stop the growth, that kind of thing. So that's why they're looking to pull the permit, as many permits as they can. Because once you have a permit in hand, you're clear to build. But it also has time constraints. You can't just have a permit for 5 years.
So you're clear to build, but you also the time constraints. I didn't know. I'm not a builder, but the thing that
Yeah.
I do know is that once you get that permit, well, economics can change, right? Interest rates can go up, home sales can slow down. We saw that at various times, and and then you get the community that gets involved. Anaheim Hills has been a big issue of any kind of, they want to put high density housing in Anaheim Hills, and the community just gets outraged every single time, exactly as you just said.
Yeah. It isn't a guarantee to anything. I mean, I was giggling because uh I was under construction with a project in 2005 when it came to a screeching halt overnight. AI That's when AIG went down, and too big to fail was the motto of the time. And the housing industry came to a screeching halt. You remember it. You were in
Sure,
mortgages,
sure.
and but so yeah, they have to be very careful. They have to be they're well aware of that environment going in as well. Right now, though, the biggest thing is the buyer and the interest rates. As I always said, if we could get interest rates back down to 5.5, we would start to see the market really, a lot of buyers come back into the market. But as I said earlier, if we get down to 5.5 and add a bunch of buyers, we don't have the inventory for all the extra buyers. Now it's really, really going to become a seller's market, which is not good. If you ask me, that's not good for the market when sellers have that much control. You want the buyers to be able to go look at something, put a reasonable bid. You don't want to keep reading that everything was sold for 25% over asking. I'm sure the seller loves that, but for a market, that's a little too one sided. And markets don't work well when they're that way. They always work better when they're even.
So what do you say about the concept, though, about the people that put the properties up for sale, at 10, 15, 20% below market as a strategy?
Um, that's a strategy to get people in there. It doesn't necessarily mean that's going to work completely. I prefer that. I think it's better to be at market or a little low rather than above market, because it's always easier to work with people going up. But you also have to remember, let's say you have something at 500,000. I'm just making up a number. 500,000. You put it at 450, and you start attracting people, and you sort of get a little bit of a bidding war going, but it goes up to 520. That's $70,000 stretch. Is that buyer going to make that $70,000? So you got to be careful on what your balance is. You got to be careful on how far you reach and how far your buyers can reach. They might not qualify for that extra 70,000. That's quite a bit more in a payment, and maybe and quite a bit more in a down payment too.
Yeah, and the one thing that we obviously want to talk about in that aspect is, and we've got a plan. We got a plan for that. The appraisal. Will the appraisal come
Well,
in?
right. Well,
And
it appraise. I mean,
and
but this is
obviously you can
again,
look at
if you
our.
have, if you're dealing with your real estate agent, they should be aware of that. They shouldn't be just relying on a Zillow Z estimate or something. They should understand the process of an appraisal, and they can do a modified version. It's not an official appraisal, but they can do, they can use the same formulas to kind of see how they're balancing out.
And obviously, if
If
you're
they
if
have
you're
that,
dealing
if
with
they're
an appraisal
experienced enough,
issue
they know
on
how to
the
do
on the
that.
loan, go to rsrlinks.com/appraisal gap,
Mhm.
rsrlinks.com/appraisal gap, and we actually show you a strategy to deal with a appraisal shortage, just in case
Yeah.
your appraisal doesn't come through. The appraisal gap project could be really important for you as a solution. Um,
Well,
Go
I will
ahead, Tim.
tell you, I think you're a lone voice out there, and you're the voice of the future. I think the idea that people are still stuck in an 80-20 loan, which is 20% down, 80% financed, or 25-75, whatever the standard, as you said, standard 30-year fixed. I think they need to start looking at the whole picture. I think with the higher rates, I don't see rates going down the way they did before. That's not going to be able to happen for probably at least 10 years, with the way the economy is and the time it takes for things to change. Uh, your methodology, or your that you're stating, is to look at um, your combined payment, your combined interest rate. I think there's a lot of there's tremendous merit in that as you go into the housing market, and then that way you can find out, because one, the average house in Orange County, the median price. Now we know that's the median is like 1.7 million, uh, and
Wow.
the average sales is like 1.3. So that's a lot of money. It's a lot of payment. And I think unless you start looking at your overall household, you gotta start thinking out of the box. And if you're dealing with some mortgage lender and a realtor that are following just traditional guidelines, that's not good for you. There's a lot more options out there and a lot of other ways to look at it. I think we've had this conversation a lot before, that financing is the key to the strategy. Finding the
Absolutely.
house is not as hard as financing.
Yeah, financing is, and you spend more money on financing. We're going to continue our conversation with Jim Norton when we come back. Continue our conversation. Jim Norton is with us, talking real estate, talking year end. We're just talking.
I
Lots of fun
don't know.
stuff.
Sometimes we talk too much.
We're especially when Josh has to do editing.
Yeah.
So
But those statistics on winter are correct. I mean, it's a great time to buy, especially if you're looking at new homes. Builders are looking to take stuff off their books in the last quarter because they want to be able to gear up for more starts in the next year. So buying a new home from a builder is a good time to do right in the last month of December.
and they like to get the get rid of that interest expense, get the profits booked so that
Yep.
their numbers look good for their
Yep.
shareholders.
And the banks, we're ready to, we need more money. So you ready to lend, and oh yeah, the whole kit and caboodle.
So what
The
are you
problem is,
looking at?
everybody's tied up with Christmas and holidays, and
What are you looking at for next year, Jim? What's your crystal ball showing?
right now, and we could talk about that a little more next month, but we're going to have interest rates coming down a bit. I think the jury's still out on where that's going to go. I would like to see them come down under 6. I don't know if they're going to get there. They might get there in 2 years or so, but I don't think they're going to collapse. I think we're going to be in this six range for quite a while. It's kind of the new. Remember when we were at 8%? We used to always wish we could go to 7%, and then we went to 3%. We never thought that would happen in our lifetime. So I think six is kind of the new norm a little bit for now. It will fluctuate and go down, but as everything goes up fast, they come down slow. And so that's one thing. In regulatory, I don't think we're going to see them understanding how to build more houses in California. I think they're still stuck in the same mud of thinking that the way they do. I don't even know what it is. But the old days, there used to be a hierarchy to home ownership too. You could buy a condo for a couple of 100,000. You could buy a townhome for a little more.
I think you're
You could buy
dating
your
yourself.
first entry level house, and then you could buy your forever home. And then you sold it and went back down to a downsize. That what I just listed off, five sections of housing, five types of housing, doesn't exist much anymore. It's kind of like, you know, one type of housing, and that's it. And that's single family detached. And there's other ways to build stuff and other ways to be affordable.
Yeah, you look at some of these different numbers, and one of the things that I found very, very fascinating was last Thursday. I spent a good part of the afternoon listening to the Chapman University economic forecast,
Hmm.
and we continue to listen to our government, our state government people talking about needing affordable housing. And I never knew how they determined affordable housing, but it's done as a percentage of the median home price.
Right.
And so you look in someplace like Newport Beach where median home price might be like $2 million or something.
Right.
So they say, okay, what if we do 80% of that? That's $1.6 million. And I'm just throwing out numbers. I don't know the exact number there, but say that's $1.6 million. Is that affordable? And not for the average person,
Yeah.
right? So it's this affordable housing concept is not going to really do a whole heck of a lot, I don't think, for anybody.
No, and what yeah, the way again, as I said, the way they've looked at it historically is just is no longer applicable that way, because you're right. I mean, what did I just say? I think the average median price in Orange County is 1.7. So
I've got it on my
80% of
screen right
that.
now. According to Black Knight, it's 1.294.
Okay, let's use back. I don't. It doesn't really matter. But 1.294, 80% of that still is 800,000. I mean, so are you talking affordable housing being 400,000, 500, 600? It's relative to the median price. The way they're using
A
that
million
that
sixty is
information
what
now.
I think a
You have to
million
look at,
60.
yeah. You
I
have
think
to look at
80% of
salaries.
that's like $1.60 million. So it's still over
Yeah.
a million. Now, I don't know about you, Jim, but my first home was not $1 million home.
No, I mean, when I bought my, we just talked about that. I was talking about that with the kids, and they were amazed, that we could buy something, but it was relative. We did not make the same amount of money either.
Yeah, that's true.
We I remember part of the conversation started because I said I had my first job out of college at $5 an hour. And they're like, $5 an hour? How did you live? And I said, well, things weren't as expensive. I mean, that's the power of inflation and what it's done to everything. But you know, it's there has to be a way to get there. It's just a matter of uh I don't know. It's like we need to listen to Ron Siegel radio a little bit more as a politician in California, so you can understand how the market works. And once you understand how the market works, you can then gear up programs to make that market happen. But right now,
Well, ironically enough, Jim, one of the things you said is something that we're pushing a lot with our private clients and the people that come to us is the concept of that interest rate. You can afford your affordability is a lot better if you can get that interest rate down. And
mhm,
one of my favorites, if you listen to Ron Siegel Radio for any length of time, you've heard me mention strategy beats rate always.
right,
Offer a little more money on the property and ask the seller to help with that buying down the interest rate. You'll be able to afford the property a lot better. not a short-term buy down, a full 30-year buy down. Strategy beats rate always. And I think we're going to have a good year next year. I think there's going to be a lot of benefits and opportunity for people. We've got a lot of the uncertainty out of the market now with the election over, whether you like the outcome or not. That uncertainty is gone. So come back and check us out.